Marjorie Taylor Greene represents a sort of extremist that I often decry on this show. I take on both sides, and she undoubtedly represents the fringe of the Republican Party. But that doesn't mean that she should be kept off the ballot and prevented from running for office. But that's exactly what a group of Georgia voters, represented by a group called Free Speech for the People, is trying to do. Last month, they asked Republican Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger to keep Greene off the ballot, citing a provision known as the Insurrectionist Disqualification Clause. The 19th century clause, part of the 14th Amendment and passed in the wake of the Civil War, bans anyone who engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the United States or has given aid or comfort to the nation's enemies from holding any kind of public office. Yesterday, a federal court ruled that a lawsuit seeking to block the Georgia Republican Congresswoman from seeking re-election can go forward. Greene denies any wrongdoing and had sought an injunction against the lawsuit, claiming that it likely wouldn't be resolved before Georgia's primary elections on May 24th. And she's downplayed, and at times seemingly justified, the assault on the Capitol. During an appearance on Tucker Carlson's show last night, she responded to the ruling by threatening that Republicans could take similar action against Democrats.
If you can challenge any representative's candidacy or elected office holder, then I bet you we could round up some Republican voters who didn't like Kamala Harris funding rioters, criminal rioters out of jail, or Ilhan Omar, or Cori Bush, or Maxine Waters inciting riots. You know, I think there's another way to play this game.
And look, I think on that, she's got a point. Just because the Congresswoman says crazy things doesn't mean she should be barred from running for office. In recent months, we've seen a rise of these kinds of legal challenges, mostly from left-leaning groups seeking to prevent certain Republicans from running for office because of alleged roles they played in or around the January 6th Capitol riot. Last month, a federal judge blocked another effort by the same Free Speech for People group to disqualify North Carolina Republican Madison Cawthorn. That suit claimed the congressman's involvement with January 6th made him ineligible. Now, neither Greene nor Cawthorn has been charged with anything related to the Capitol riot, which I think makes it difficult to say that they engaged in an insurrection as defined by the law, something I pointed out to Ron Fine, the legal director for that group, Free Speech for People, in February. What are you relying on to define what happened as a legal matter at the Capitol as an insurrection, because that's a necessary requirement for you to be able to even, begin to have a chance in this lawsuit?
Absolutely. This has to be defined as an insurrection for this type of candidate challenge to go forward. And you can look at it one of two ways. One way you could look at it is to look at all the people who have said it's an insurrection. So those include, for example, Senator Mitch McConnell. But you could also look at it from what is the starting point of the legal definition of an insurrection. You could the historical definition in the 19th century and how courts define it now.
Now, again, I think the things that Greene and Cawthorn have said about and around January 6th are wrong and even shameful. But trying to disqualify them, or anyone else for that matter, from running for office by using a more than century-old constitutional clause meant to prevent Confederates from returning to public office following the Civil War, it seemed to me that's the solution. If you want to keep these people out of office, the way to do it is to beat them at the ballot box, I would think, not in the courtroom. But joining us now is Heath Mayo. He's an attorney and a Republican activist. Heath, welcome back to the show. Appreciate it. So what do you make of this?
I agree with what you're saying. This is ultimately what you would like to see, is you would like to see voters not vote for folks who encourage attacks on the Capitol. And the reality is that the legal question here is sort of unprecedented. I mean, other than, as you noted, right around the time of the Civil War, where we were trying to keep Confederates out of Congress, courts really have not grappled with questions like, what does the word insurrection mean in the Constitution? Who is seen as inciting the insurrection? But then there's also the question of who decides. Does the Congress decide? Do courts decide after voters challenge it? So it'll be interesting to see how the two courts, both in North Carolina and Georgia, settle the question.
But how do they define insurrection? I mean, if they're not being charged, right, with an insurrection, I guess in the context of this case, a judge could deem it to have been an insurrection right? In terms of a constitutional analysis as opposed to criminal.
Right. And actually, the few instances where it has been applied in the past, it was applied right after the Civil War against folks who had literally engaged in the Civil War.
Right.
And then it was applied once against Victor Berger in like 1919. And he was a socialist who had violated the Espionage Act. And it actually, the first time, he was convicted. And while that case was being appealed, the Congress refused to seat him. So in that instance, Congress said, this guy is an enemy of the United States. We're not going to seat him. They didn't seat him. Later, the Supreme Court reversed that decision, and Congress decided to seat him. So the technical legal definition, that actually would support your argument there. So
my prediction is, putting aside what I think should happen, my prediction is that both will end up on the ballot. What do you think?
I think that's probably safe to say, and I think the legal scholars who have looked at it also have sort of, in general, come down on that side of the question. But it'll be interesting. I mean, judges have come down on two separate ways, both in Georgia and North Carolina so far.
And
so
I think the folks suing know they've got an uphill battle. I mean, it was almost like when I had this guy Ron Fine on the show, and he was making these sort of interesting kind of legalistic arguments, but I think he knew that they were fighting an uphill battle.
Yeah, I mean, and for better or for worse, the courts have become sort of a political playground for some of these groups to kind of go in and make these claims, and you saw this with the challenges to the 2020 election.
Yep.
People going in and challenging under sort of arcane laws the certification of the election, and people lose their law license for bringing those types of claims. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, but I don't think you have quite the frivolous, you know. And again, I was very supportive of President Trump being able to pursue all of his legal options. Right. But then there reaches a point after where, for example, even now, there are still lawsuits going on where they're saying, oh, you know, they should decertify. I mean, you know, there does get to be a problem.
Right. Yeah, I think in this instance, it's a little bit, it's at least more colorable of an argument than the ones that they had there. So I don't think you'll be kicking people out of court. But
Heath Mayo, thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.